Well, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co-host, Michèle Kline of Kline Hospitality. How are you today, Michèle?
I'm doing good, Stephanie. We're talking about 4th of July celebrations going into the
Woohoo!
busy summer and what happens when 4th of July suddenly hits us, right?
Oh,
We
man.
have all these very unique challenges that are
Absolutely.
related to our industry between increased demand and supply chain disruptions and safety and security concerns, having to put on fireworks shows and all those beautiful things. So how
Mhm.
about we talk about this?
Absolutely, yes. And it even falls, during the week. It's Thursday, so you would think that you'll get more of the longer week heading into the weekend, but it's still that toss up. Do the guests come and spend the entire week? Are they spending the long weekend? Are they just spending the middle of the week? So for revenue management, it's also to a hard guess to figure out when it falls on that time period during the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think about the disruptions related to supply chain, right? 4th of July is that peak summer moment. Everybody's out there enjoying, and all of a sudden you run out of pool towels.
Yeah.
What do we do next?
I know. Or also too, if it's the right in the beginning of the month, or in some, they may consider it still part of the with the quarter and everything. So looking at your budget, it's just a hard time. I feel that where 4th of July lands during the year when you're trying to budget and plan. And then also too, with the supply and demand, if here you are at the high occupancies and you already ran out of pool towels by 11:30 in the morning, or also too at those resorts where the guests are lining up at 7 a.m. to go and making sure that they're putting things on their towels to hold space. And then I know we're going to talk about weather, but then weather becomes into a factor as well. And now you have all of those wet items, which we've talked about in previous episode.
Maintaining adequate inventory levels, it is critical, right? You know that your
Yeah.
pool towels are going to walk. It
Yeah.
happens, right? Now, what
Yeah.
about safety and security concerns? We have these large gatherings, fireworks displayed, everybody's excited. People tend to drink a little more than they're supposed to. How do we prepare our team to be on their best game? I
Yes,
think that one
absolutely.
of the ways to doing that is referring back to stories from prior years, right?
Hmm.
Storytelling can be a great way to help team members understand what it is that they're going into and what those possible scenarios look like. So going back in time will allow them to really understand, how do we do it here, which could be
Yeah.
different than previous place you were working at.
Absolutely. Yes, I think it's good, to even doing some pre-drills leading up, to these big holidays and the holiday weekends is okay, let's have a retraining of, in case of emergency, these are our meeting points, these are our reports that we need to fill out. In case of emergency, this is how the command of communication is set, and making sure that the employees feel really comfortable and confident that they fully understand those procedures, and looking out for suspicious activity, whether it is those guests that may have had a little bit too much to to drink. And now, having to bring in your security staff members to being able to make peace in the area or in the crowd, especially if it's in the beach in the middle of the day. But definitely pre-planning helps a lot when it comes to that safety and security. I mean, we can plan all out we want, and then, unfortunately things do rise, but the more planning to making sure that your team members know, and especially your new team members. In the summer months, we have a lot of properties that have J1s and H2Bs that are just there for the summertime. So you may have your seasonal employees that don't fully understand, because this is their first time to the property. Like how you were saying, they come from a different property and don't really know here at their current property.
Yeah. And connecting them with each other too, so that they can learn some of those best practices from what was learned prior years when they were not there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, weather related issues, in depending on where you are in the country, you're going to be impacted in one way or another. One of the biggest challenges that we see, at least here in Las Vegas, is it gets very hot.
Mm-hmm,
And there's
mm-hmm.
not, although we have a huge sense of awareness related to water consumption and making sure that you use the appropriate sunscreen and all those things, I'm not sure if our team members, especially those that come from other states, if they truly grasp the intensity of the heat in summer months when they're working outdoors, and become aware of it on how to be proactive about it, right? And 4th of July is that one day where nobody stops in our industry. Like
No.
everyone is go, go, go from the moment they clock in to the moment they clock out. So, as leaders, we have to make sure that our team understands and that we, as leaders, stay on top of them so that they can be aware of what their body is telling them so that they don't collapse, especially on a
Absolutely.
day where we need absolutely everyone on board, right? So,
Yes.
having contingency plans in place, understanding what extreme heat can do. What if there's a storm, right? In other areas of the country, you had all these celebrations planned and everything was going to be outdoor, and now there's a storm. Looking at those weather conditions, how we can impact our outdoor events, what activities do we have planned? Those are all great ways in creating those contingency plans to make sure that the events that we committed to our guests are still running smoothly, regardless of any challenges related to the weather.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Going along the lines with the employees is, we say, oh, yes, we have water stations for the guest, and, lotion for sunscreen, all available for the guests. But let's remind our employees. I mean, there's been so many times when I've been working on the beach during these holiday weekends, and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And then everyone's like, you look like a lobster. And you don't realize it because you don't even have time to go look at yourself in the mirror because you're running around. So making sure, as leaders, that you're reminding your staff, have you had water? Have you reapplied your sunscreen? Do you need to take a break to be indoors just to be able to recuperate? Or, making sure also too of the type of material your employees' uniforms are, that they also too are suited for those summer months, not just during the winter time or when it's cooler out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about regulatory compliance?
You
I can
know,
tell you, Stephanie, that the bigger properties are paying attention to this for sure.
mhm, mhm.
But I can also tell you that the smaller properties in more remote areas are not necessarily looking into the specific regulations related to alcohol service or fireworks display or, noise
Yes,
ordinances,
yes.
crowd management. So let's help our smaller hoteliers or our smaller hotels hoteliers with some tips on how do we go about this, right? The pre-planning is so important.
Absolutely. It takes also too of knowing your own city ordinance, going to your council meetings, mayor meetings, attending those meetings, so knowing more about the ordinance and regulations, because you obviously, if something was to happen, you want the city on your side. You don't want it to be in like, oh, I didn't know, and then trying to ask for forgiveness isn't going to happen. But get involved in the community, knowing the regulations, knowing who is the go-to person to being able to answer those questions that you may have in relation to those regulations. And we're always seeing those rules are changing yearly, quarterly. Especially to July 1st tends to be a date that if the law didn't go into effect in January, we see, that second wave happening during July 1st.
Great
So
point.
this is a great time getting involved, knowing more with your city, your community, to fully understand. Also, to, we talk about those small hoteliers, but even with their Airbnb, this is, I think, where we see a lot of issues that do arise. And, as that Airbnb owner, this is really where also, too, you need to understand the local regulations, because next thing you know, you're going to have your neighbor who's going to be having the local news stopping by.
100%. So, for more tips on how to prep for your 4th of July holiday, or any holiday that
Yeah.
is related to staffing and supplies and regulations and being creative and all those beautiful things to be able to provide your guests with a memorable experience, be sure to reach out to us and we will share some extra tips. Other than that, we hope that these few nuggets help you get through the holiday in a more creative way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone.